8th episode of Tower Tales, the ATC Podcast. This is your host Mahesh Sharma, joining you from Hyderabad to bring you the untold stories of veteran air traffic controllers from the Indian Air Force. In each episode, I delve into their experiences, sharing their real stories, challenges, and the critical roles they played towards ensuring security of our skies. Let's explore the fascinating world of ATC with these men and women who were radioactive once upon a time. Our guest for this episode was commissioned in June 1979. After basic ATC training, his first posting was at Air Force Station Chandigarh, followed by Tezpur. He served as a controller at various operational bases, including Srinagar, for 16 years before moving on to non-ATC staff appointments. After his retirement from the Indian Air Force, he was a senior consultant with Cabinet Secretariat of Government of India and is currently settled at Delhi. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Group Captain Govind Saxena as our special guest for this episode. Good afternoon, Group Captain Saxena. It is such a pleasure to connect with you once again, sir, after such a long time. And you occupy a very special place in my heart because we have served together while in the Air Force. How are you doing, sir?
I'm fine, Mahesh. Thanks for remembering me so fondly. And it will be a pleasure talking to you about our old days, especially ATC.
Yes, sir. And I was really looking forward to this. Without waiting any further, let me ask you, what prompted you to join Air Force? And can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Mahesh, I did my MA Political Science from Allahabad University. And those days, everybody in Allahabad University, especially Muir Hostel, we used to be vying for, attempting our good shot with the civil services. And before that could happen, I saw an ad in the papers asking young people to, apply for Air Force Adam branch. So I thought this is also administration like IAS. So I filled up that form and sent it. I got a call. And the best part was, in hostel days, you're always short of money. They were giving you free railway ticket up and down. So I went there, and as the luck would have it, in those 4-5 days of stay with the AFSB selection board, I got through and joined AFA. This was in June 1978.
Oh, okay.
So after about a year of training, we thought we will get our postings. But those days, you had no choice of either opting for pure admin or for air traffic control or for fighter controllers. But I was in a very serious, courtship with a girl whom you have met as my wife also.
Yes.
And I wanted to, finish off my training and get to a unit. But then they said no. People with good eyesight and hearing power will have to go to ATC or fighter controllers. So I said, why not fighter controllers? Because I belong to Lucknow, and this training was held in Memora and the duration was just about 3 months. ATC was for 6 months. But then nobody would listen to you, and I was detailed as an ATC trainee. So spent another 6 months at AFA. After 6 months, I got the first posting, which was Chandigarh. And
that's very nice, sir. So I really like the bit when you're talking about, your impression of administration being akin to something like civil services. And those days, I think that generation didn't calculate too much or find out too many things. Moving on to your postings, let's recount some of the fond memories that you have. But starting with the first posting, what do you? What is the most memorable thing you have about your first posting, and especially when you landed up at Chandigarh?
Chandigarh, I believe, is, and later on I learned that it is uh, a very prize place of posting. So there were 13 ATC officers there, starting from SATCO to the last pilot officer, that was me.
Mhm.
And everybody was my mentor, all seniors. And the best part was it that when it was an inspection time, like Dasi, Satco would call me and send me on kind of forced leave. Okay, Dasi is coming, so you be on leave. So I used to be sent on leave because youngster, not categorized, and so that is how I began there. But then there was one fighter squadron, and it was basically a transport base uh, doing forward area drop sorties. So hectic schedule. And my first SATCO was late Air Commodore Pannu, who groomed me, and I still remember, and I keep telling juniors also. Uh, I was, because I was not ops, so I was everyday morning shift kind. And one day I got a chit from the Audley. Satco had sent it to me. He wrote, and I will quote, Sax. He used to call me Sax, although all Saxenas are born sexy. But he used to call me Sax. He says, Sax, you may like to see how the afterburner of a fighter aircraft looks at night. Briefing 1900 hours. Now, what a lovely way of summoning a youngster on duty, uh, not giving you an order, but to just telling you that uh, the words and language that he used. So there was no option. I reported there for the briefing, and that was the kind of handling that he gave me.
Mhm.
And soon I became day ops kinds, and then started doing controlled descent, which was early in life in ATC officers career is one of the things. If you do it nicely, you have earned it. So, and the squadron used to appreciate me, and good show, and Satco, all seniors. So I still remember there was one flight commander, Squadron Williams.
Mhm.
He used to pep me up and give me a lot of controlled descents. And one day, uh, while changing over from tar to radar, he told me, radar means the air
Oh,
defense radar, because there
oh,
was no radar in Chandigarh. So he told me that I'll give you a letdown on my return. I said, thank you, sir. So suddenly I get a call. Chandi tar, call sign so and so, request QGH. So then he says, and my compass is not functioning. Give me a US compass. So I just, in my heart, I thought, no problems. I started. And you being an ATC officer, you know that you have to take him outbound and then make him turn after so many seconds and minutes and seconds, and then inbound, give corrections. But the bugger won't, the AD210C that we used to have those days,
yes, sir.
not the DRDF, that needle wala thing,
Yes, sir.
it was not locking. It was just going round and round. And I looked at the senior who was next to me. He didn't acknowledge. So the flight commander would just tell me, so Chandi ATC, uh, uh, gravy 1000. So I was waiting for a steady lock so that I can give him a bearing to roll out. That wouldn't happen. Then he says, Chandi ATC, gravy 900. gravy 800, gravy 700,
Mhm.
gravy 600, turning downwind and abandoned the control descent.
Yes.
And I was really shaken up. I said, I thought I've become a hot rod on US compass and things. So he came to TAR immediately after landing. He changed over and came to TAR, and he says, "Sexy, kya ho gaya?" A very fine gentleman. I
Mhm.
said, "Sir, the needle wasn't locking." He
Yeah.
says, "Damn it, it would never lock. I was overhead. You should have given me a bearing to roll out and then
Yeah.
establish me." So
Yeah.
it was a lesson to me. And then I realized that, like in golf, you can have a bad day without any warning.
True.
And these are the learning process.
Yeah, no, but
So,
one thing which has come out very well was the kind of fatherly attitude the seniors would have, especially the Satco and other people also towards the youngsters, and the way they would, like you mentioned about the case of seeing a fighter aircraft take off in the night and how would the afterburner look, and things like this, which would instill some or invoke some kind of an interest in you without sounding like an order. So those were some of the creative ways people would kind of evoke interest, and yet when things were difficult, they would provide you support, be like a fatherly figure. Somewhere, in our daily rigmarole, despite the fact that bases and Chandigarh must have been very, very busy flying base, the fact is that despite that hectic schedule, people would still find time to steal a smile and do things in their own creative ways. And that's really something which we miss. Especially with the seniors who had a sense of humor. And also the QGH, the US Compass, I think this was a bane for most of the youngsters who would start, because as if it was a kind of a trick that people would begin normally overhead so that the controller gets confused. The bearings would rapidly change since you're overhead. And with the 8210C, I know it would keep hunting. There was no lock, unlike the digital DRDF and CADF which came later on. So I
hmm.
can completely understand the state.
No,
Uh,
you're very right. I mean, the way seniors mentored you and gave you situations. I remember same Chandigarh posting as a youngster. It happened one day that we had an evening party, and that day I did a tactical QGH, and it went off well,
mhm.
very well. So instead of the Satco, it was the CEO of the squadron who was taking me around and telling everybody, today the youngster did a wonderful tactical letdown,
Yeah.
and took me to AOC. AOC used to be the last word for us
Yes.
those days. So he said, "Sir, so these were the things that you still remember." I mean, at least remember them till today, that how I was groomed, and I made all efforts when I was in the middle rug or senior, or when I became a Satco. I gave the same comfort and mentorship,
Yeah.
because I gained from it.
No, true, sir. Because I think for AOC or a squadron commander or a CO, it is one of the many things that they do every day. But
Hmm.
to call it out and appreciate it for the youngster, it's a big thing. It's a huge thing. It goes a long way in encouraging that person.
True.
So completely understand that. So moving on from Chandigarh, where did you go next, sir?
Next was the real ATC kinds of bases, Tezpur.
Okay.
Wonderful place.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
Mahesh, when I share my experiences with you, I will not share those experiences where I only had earned accolades and things. Where you slip and don't and you falter. Chandigarh again, wonderful place, and three fighter squadrons busy.
Yeah.
You had been to Tezpur
Yes, sir.
yourself.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And when you are in ATC, and suddenly the runway changes from 05 to 23. 23 was the most critical kind of a recovery in bad weather.
And both for
Even
I think it was both for the pilots and controllers. It was a tricky.
both. And the same thing, when you have recovered the last aircraft, the flying supervisor, SFS would pat you, or you get a call from a, or the SATCO would have also come to the tower, saying that bad weather recovery is in progress. We had a GCA also there in Tezpur, and it was wonderful. And I was flying officer and got my rank there itself when I was detailed for GCA course, and did my GCA, and loved sitting there, because you can imagine three squadrons, 18 aircrafts in the air, and giving them air coverage. So I remember in one of the such situations, tight situations, I gave one squadron pilot one heading to roll out, say 045. That would take him away from the base. Then I was giving instructions to other aircraft, feeding the PRE chap, and I was on SRE. So PR was also being, when recovery was on. So then he would pop up again, senior QFI, and then he would say 045, so and so, heading 045. And again, I would say continue heading 045. So he understood that something is wrong. So he would on his own turn around, but I didn't say that which heading he is rolling out, but he would tell me 045 because I had given him that. So, and same thing, this happened for quite some time. Then he asked me, "Sexy, can you please follow my blip on your radar? Am I going out or coming in?"
Yeah, because 045 would have been towards, Chardwar and the hills and.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that is the time when you realize that something is amiss, and you recover it. And this reminds me, Mahesh, we had such an incident. I'm jumping 2-3 postings, our 902 AFA days.
Yes,
You were also there.
Yes.
I remember we were on RT and on scopes. You had just entered for afternoon shift, and there was panic there because one flying club girl had got disoriented and was lost.
Yes.
And they had told us to help the girl.
I still remember the name Vasavi.
So what you remember it because nobody would look at you because everybody was busy. There was no question of handing over at that moment.
Yes.
So you tapped the controller on the desk and said, "Sir, may I?" Because you had studied the situation for 5 minutes, and the girl was very panicky.
Yes, sir.
She was not talking; she was mumbling.
In fact, I also recall that the controller, the civil controller, who was initially guiding the girl, was also not his voice was not very conducive to building somebody's confidence.
So you just so you were given the mic, and you said, "This is AFA radar. Can you just tell me your name?" So she gave the name. I had forgotten. What was that you said?
Vasavi.
So then you said, "Vasavi, you are in safe hands. You are painting on the radar. I will recover you. Just tell me where you are." Okay. So then she said, "Sir, there is a pond on the left and this, that. So what is your altimeter showing?" and things like that. She started talking.
Yes, sir.
And just because then you got connected to the flyer by her name, things worked well, and she was recovered. And
I also remember, sir, I mean, you vividly recall that. I'm so glad. I remember that As a backup, there was an aircraft, N-32, which was coming from Yelahanka, and I requested the pilot to pick up this aircraft. We vectored him towards this aircraft, so that I wanted to be sure that we have a backup recovery just in case she goes on, her blip goes out of coverage or something like that. So that AN-32 also picked up that particular aircraft, and both of us were able to guide her to recovery.
So the point was that, hearing her name, she started talking.
Yes,
Then things worked out well.
yeah,
So that is how. And Tezpur, definitely, I mean, wonderful
so
place.
would have been which year was this?
82 to 85.
82 to 85, and there would have been just bare infrastructure at that point of time, because I know that even when we got posted there, we were in Bashas and all. But I remember the area, the place used to be very humid, with the AC struggling to keep the temperature under control. What were some of the challenges you faced as a controller in Tezpur? Anything that you recall which is fresh in your mind?
Basically, there also, UT Ops pilots used to fly. And as a controller, we all being youngsters there, mundane things we used to handle. I mean, electricity problem, water problem. At work, in those days, the base had GCA, DRDF has been installed there, and services were pretty fine. I mean, nothing to crib about, but you had to keep a very sharp lookout for youngsters while flying in the sectors, and especially at night flying. I mean, at times you or at times they, because I gave you one example of how I was telling that gentleman to roll out 045. In night flying, normally they don't let the under trainee pilot stay back and be the last to land. But that day it so happened, weather was fine, everything was fine. So the first aircraft, he said, airfield in sight, and this was the last aircraft. And this youngster, I would tell him to report point Misa. You remember there was a point.
Yes, sir. Charlie Misa Delta on the DDS route. Yes, sir.
So he would come to that point, and report there, and then you are very sure that now next call would be airfield in sight, and you will hand him over to TAR. So that day, that youngster used to turn around and go back to his sector. So first time it happened, I thought maybe he wanted to do some more. So I gave him instructions again to roll out so and so and report point. So he again did that. When he did it for the third time, then I knew that it's a case of disorientation. And I just told him, follow instructions, continue on this heading, and I'll tell you when you are overhead. So with great reluctance, he did that, came overhead. Then I asked him on radar, is airfield in sight? Weather was fine. He was the last aircraft. He said, yes, sir. So I handed him over to the TAR and told the TAR that just see whether. He came and landed. That was a typical case of disorientation. And he acknowledged. He says, sir, I thought that you are taking me away from my base. So things can go wrong anytime.
One of the biggest challenges, like you mentioned in Tezpur, was that the trainee pilots, the under trainee pilots, and they were not experienced, and they would come to a place where the terrain was also tricky. We had a big river, Brahmaputra River, whose expanse was so wide that night flying people would find it very, very uncomfortable at a low level. So there were a lot of factors. And I also think we used to have these air maintenance sorties going from Jorhat to the hills. And the pilots who would go to the Dalanmukh range and come back, their paths would cross. So that also used to be a very, very tricky thing, because most of the times both the air maintenance sorties and the fighters would be returning from the range and they would be low on fuel.
And the worst part was that caribous,
Yeah,
they had no no RT. I mean, usually the RT was bad.
yeah,
Invariably, it used to be bad.
yeah, yeah.
But then somehow,
Gradually, schedules came and things became better.
uh,
Fine, sir. So from Tezpur, then you moved on to, I think, Srinagar.
Tezpur, say, I had some, my father had some heart ailment, and so I asked for a posting to Lucknow.
Mhm.
So in their wisdom, P staff said, no, we can't give you Lucknow. Go to Allahabad.
Okay.
And that was a transport base. And I spent 3 years. I was a senior most, so I became Satco there. Thereafter, and as the luck would have it, I lost my father. So P staff was kind enough to send me to Bakshiga Talab. Then I got a posting to Srinagar. 91, I went to Srinagar.
Okay.
And Srinagar, of course, was wonderful, very challenging, and spot heights because of the closeness of the mountains to the airfield. We were on it's a ball, so we were on a plateau kind of.
So any memorable incident from those days?
Yes, of course. And when once again, where I fumbled as an ATC officer, I was recovering aircraft on radar, bad weather, and flight commander and his number two was a UT. They were the last ones. Everything was going on fine, and they came overhead, and I insisted on number two to descending to 1.2 kilometers or something, and report overhead, because he said airfield inside. So the flight commander was my neighbor and a good friend. So he said, Sexy, bring him over a normal height. So I said, negative, report overhead. So he was worried then. So when I repeated it twice, he said, Sexy, what is the airfield elevation? I think the airfield elevation Srinagar is 1.6 or something. So he says, Sexy, what is the airfield elevation? Then it struck me that, so I said, maintain your height, report overhead. And because this is another thing, and I used to cover this up when I used to go for guest lectures at court. Because after recovering, say, 10, 15 aircraft in bad weather, when the tail is remaining, or when 2 or 3 aircraft are remaining, you tend to become complacent, and you feel that you have done your job well. And then these kind of things are more likely to happen. And there is no reason why I should have given him that height to descend. And it was something like calling out name of that girl that day. The flight commander asked me, Sexy, what is the airfield elevation? And I had to, sheepishly tell him to maintain height. And
It's very candid of you to say, but I know to remember those incidents, and luckily things did not take a turn for the worse, and we can now recount them and share a
so
laugh.
I always narrated them to my youngsters, and I used to tell them that good work is good work. If you have recovered, you would have signed there as off duty and earned your evening rent. But these are the things that you must remember and keep visiting and revisiting, because they make you wiser, so you don't commit such mistakes, and never take things for granted.
Yeah.
So
I think
I'm
one
still
should not let the guard down, especially when the number of aircraft are less, like you mentioned.
correct.
So tell us, moving from your postings to interpersonal relations and all, Anything that you recollect from your interactions with your ATC colleagues or your impact on them?
See, ATC teaches you a lot as an ATC on interpersonal relationships, because when you are on shift duty and it's a lean phase, you get talking to your colleague or to the men on duty with you. So generally you would, ask them how's life, how's family, how are children doing, and then you develop that bonding. So um, I don't think there are very many branches where an officer, an ATCO, and an AFSO would have this kind of bonding and rapport building, and it helps during controlling also.
Yeah.
Looking at each other, that man without speaking would realize what I need and what I expect, and he would do it. And that taught me that this is also important, that man. And especially all ATC officers will vouch for it, that on the payday, we used to get our pay in cash, there used to be a paying officer.
Yes, sir.
Usually we used to forget about the runway controller.
Oh.
And everybody knew, even the runway controller knew that he will get his pay end of the day. But, counting it with your own hands as early as possible on the payday is also important. So making it a point to get him relieved and take his pay and go back was also important. And I always insisted, as a youngster, I did it because I could do it in my shift. But when I became SATCO, I insisted that this is to be maintained. You
Yeah.
must get that chap and not forget about it, forget about that man. So these are the small things that taught me lessons in interpersonal relationships and
Like you rightly said, ATC, I think it's such a cohesive team, and unlike many other branches where you are actually into action, whether it is the crash firefighting crew, whether it is the airmen on lookout, the SFS, the controller, the coordinator between the GCA and the ATC. I mean, it has to be a seamless coordination, and I think each one of us know each other inside out. There is no bluffing or there's nothing, because even the airman on lookout is monitoring the kind of traffic you're handling, what you're doing, how well you're doing it. So I think a lot of respect comes from knowing how each performs, and I think that keeps the team very, very cohesive, because
yeah,
each one of us has is accountable. Yeah.
true.
So, moving on, sir, as we head towards the end of this podcast, what would you say towards, in terms of insights and advice for the young controllers? What does it
See,
take to become a good controller, and what would be your advice?
first and foremost is that it is essential for an air traffic controller to have a positive bent of mind. Very
Mhm.
essential. And you have to maintain your good humor and balance when you report for duty. And just recollect your days in 902, or for that matter, any ATC where more than one controller was on tower duty.
Yes,
If
sir.
one chap had a bad day, any which way,
Yes, sir.
it spills onto the other. It rubs onto the other. And most of the places where you had a like-minded and a well-meaning boss, he would make it very clear to us when
Oh.
we were juniors that don't take it out here. You have, we are, this working place has not given you something bad, so don't take it out here. With your full concentration and smiling face, present yourself on duty, and see to it that your bad mood doesn't rub onto the others. So
Yeah.
that is another.
Yeah.
And I remember ATC training days, there used to be one famous gentleman called Wing Commander Kailasam.
Yes, sir.
He happened to be in AFA. He was not posted there. So evening he was in the bar and we met him. So he had told me that time, and I would like this to be imbibed by the youngsters. He said there are three types of controllers.
Mm-hmm.
One, who are always lagging behind the traffic. When a situation develops, then they try to catch up. The other is who are just abreast of the traffic, and the third is who are always ahead of the traffic. So try to be always be ahead of the traffic. Only then you can gauge it well, analyze it well, and control it well. So after all, it's a flight safety seat that you are occupying. You have to bring them back safely, and this is how you can do it.
One of the objectives also, I think, to maintain an expeditious flow of traffic.
Flow of traffic, yes.
That I think you need to be ahead of the traffic.
Yes.
Like you said.
So this is how it is.
Yes.
But
Thank
I
you
would
so
like
much.
to mention, Mahesh, 30 seconds. Other than the air traffic control, management in TAR is also important. I had two very tricky situations.
Mm-hmm.
One, as a youngster, I was on TD to Jammu,
Mm-hmm.
and there used to be one Swami that time, Dhirendra Brahmachari.
Yes, sir.
Remember?
Yes, sir.
So he used to move around in his own small Beechcraft aircraft. So his aircraft landed there, and he was to take off after half an hour or 40 minutes. And the aircraft didn't taxi out.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a youngster just out of ATC training, and so I realized that his clearance has expired.
Mm-hmm.
So after about 1.5, quarter 2 hours, when he asked for startup, I said, your clearance has expired. You'll have to file afresh. So he said, no, sir, please, this, that. And then second time he said, Dhiren Brahmachari ji is on board. I said, sorry, this is as per law. And so next moment I saw that one Dhiren Brahmachari type person entering the TAR. He climbed the TAR and came there. So very humbly and politely I told him, sir, this is as per the ATC rules and regulations. By then I had told the SATCO. So then I again told the SATCO. SATCO told the station commander. But then I was surprised that next day in the briefing, the station commander had to mention this, and he said the youngster did a good job. All credit goes to this youngster. Okay. So this management. And the other was, while I was in Chandigarh, I think Sanjay Gandhi came and landed with clearance.
Mm-hmm.
He came and landed from Patiala.
Okay.
That was his usual this trip. And he taxied into the civil apron, and then suddenly after about 15-20 minutes I saw this aircraft coming out, and he just made a call, permission to take off. So I said, you haven't filed your clearance for your return flight, and permission denied, not clear to take off, please clear the runway. So he wouldn't. He kept on arguing on RT, and then he'll give it a silence for about a minute and then say take off. So although I never allowed him to take off, but he after about 5 minutes he rolled and he took off, turned left, cut through Ambala flying space, and then proceeded to Patiala. I mean, in my heart I thought that it's a gentleman's game here. I mean, flying is not a ruffian's thing. You can't You are asking for takeoff. I'm telling you, you're not cleared because you haven't filed your clearance. There is no ADC number, no FIR number. But these things happened. So these two incidents were,
And especially in that
bordering.
sector, I think the air defense clearance was also very, very
Very
important.
essential. Very
Otherwise,
essential.
it would have been a hostile aircraft. Yeah.
So thanks, Mahesh. Nice
Oh,
talking.
thank you so much, sir. I think we recounted some very, very interesting incidents, and you touched upon some very, very key points. I'm sure people would listen to this episode and recall those memories, and even the youngsters would pick up a few of the points that you have mentioned. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure interviewing you for this podcast.
Same here, Mahesh. And I have only one regret, ATC, and that is I never upgraded my category from B to A.
Mhm.
That was a mistake. All youngsters listening to this podcast, there is no greatness in saying that I don't care and things like that.
Mhm.
If you are in this profession, you should be the best, and you must have that stamp also.
I think we'll
Being
say.
good is not enough. So I wish I get another chance to upgrade.
Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much,
much,
sir.
Mahesh.
Thank you so much and have a lovely evening. Thanks for being on this show.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you everyone for tuning into Tower Tales, the ATC podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and had a first-hand peek into the incredible work and life of yet another veteran controller. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe to my channel on YouTube, leave a review, and share this podcast with your friends and colleagues. This podcast is also available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Your feedback will help me bring you more of the content you enjoy. Join me after a fortnight for yet another engaging discussion with a veteran air traffic controller. Until then, this is Mahesh Sharma, your host, signing off for now. Safe travels and happy landings.
Flight 019er, 2 miles northeast.